Welcome to Channel's Business Global with me, Juliana Olayinka, reporting from just outside the Palace of Westminster in central London. Coming up on today's show, Nigeria's oil industry is undergoing a major transformation. I speak with Owando Group CEO Wale Tinubu and Professor Anthony Adebulegbe of Green Energy International about how homegrown operators are responding to President Tinubu's midterm reforms and what's still holding the sector back. And it's all systems go for Wimbis' third London conference. I'll be speaking with Executive Director Omowumi Akinbombe about what to expect from this year's Power Pack showcase for African women in leadership. Then later, we bring you exclusive coverage from Lancaster House, where diplomats gathered warmly to welcome Honourable Shirley Ayoko Bochwe as the new Secretary General of the Commonwealth. But first, we begin here in London with a major development in global trade diplomacy. After months of rising tension, senior officials from Washington and Beijing have agreed to a new framework aimed at restoring elements of the suspended Geneva Truce. The talks took place right here in London at Lancaster House. Under the agreement, both sides have committed to phased tariff reductions, relaxed restrictions on key tech export, and the resumption of rare earth shipments. While the deal still requires formal sign-off from Presidents Trump and Xi Jinping, negotiators say the mood was constructive and forward-looking. Analysts believe this could ease pressure on global supply chains, particularly in areas like semiconductors and renewable energy, although the finer details are still under wraps. Elsewhere, more than 75% of pensioners in England and Wales will now receive the winter fuel payment this year, following a major U-turn by Chancellor Rachel Reeves. The payment, worth between £200 and £300, depending on age, will automatically go to anyone earning under £35,000 a year. The benefit had previously been scaled back under the Labour Party, but Reeves says restoring it is necessary to support the elderly through rising energy costs. Those with higher incomes will either repay the benefit through their tax returns or choose to opt out. Staying with the Chancellor, Reeves has also released the government's first multi-year spending plan, mapping out fiscal policy through to 2029. The package includes £113 billion in new capital investment, focused on housing, healthcare, transport and the green economy. However, departmental savings are expected too, with reductions in welfare and foreign aid budgets on the cards. Reeves says the approach strikes a balance between delivering growth and managing public debt responsibly. Well, for a deeper insight into the political impact of this week's announcements, I called up with our Downing Street correspondent, Simon Pusey. Simon, Chancellor Rachel Reeves in the headlines this week because she announced or she unveiled this multi-year spending review. I think it goes up until 2029, kind of giving us a glimpse of where Labour's priorities are. Doesn't appear to have moved most Brits, although there are some suggestions that within the Labour Party, within government, certain departments are not really happy. We was expecting more for the police, more for education. Didn't really get much of that.
No, I think it was a difficult balancing act. She's had a tough time of it recently. Obviously, everyone wanting a slice of the pie. This isn't a budget, so it's not like she's really announcing how much money they've got to spend. It's more how they're going to slice up that bit of pie. I think the speech that she made was really, a lot of it was appealing to reform voters. A lot of it, she was going around the country, she was name checking, she was talking about how they need to get people into work and they need to get people out of hotels. You know, that's been a big thing that Reform have been taking on. But it does seem to have gone down okay.
Yeah.
I think there was always going to be criticism from different departments and different people, but I think generally, you know, there were no huge surprises there. There was more money for the NHS and there was more money for defence. And those were the two things we were kind of expecting.
And infrastructure.
And infrastructure, yeah, lots of big infrastructure projects. I think what hasn't helped is that literally after that happened, news came that the UK economy had shrunk by 0.3%.
Yeah, not great.
And she has no wriggle room. Everything that she's announced is so tightly costed that any changes in the next 4 years in terms of the economy means that there won't be enough money to pay for this and there will have to be tax rises. So of course, all the journalists came out afterwards and asked, will there be tax rises to pay for all of this? Because there were lots of spending commitments, but we don't at the moment have...
How are we going to pay for them?
The economy, exactly. We don't have the leeway to do that. And she has not ruled out future tax rises. So the Conservatives obviously immediately came out and said, you know, this is a pay now, a sort of spend now, pay later thing where we are going to have more tax rises.
Typical Labour.
And council tax is the place that's probably going to bear the brunt of this, and people hate council taxes. So I think it didn't make huge headlines in terms of negativity for Labour or for Rachel Reeves, but I think in the future we may be seeing those tax, in the next budget we may see tax rises, I think, in various forms to help pay for that. But as a sort of headline figure, she's escaped for now.
You mentioned reform before the Conservatives. Quite worrying. What's going on with them? How is Kemi Badenoch performing? Again, she's just getting slapped down every week by Sir Keir Starmer. He's basically saying she's playing down Britain, not great. Especially she's had the same accusation about Nigeria. Well, I mean, that's also an opposition way to do things. The Conservatives did that. And Labour did that when they were in, it's whoever's in power, if they're criticised, they say, stop playing down the country. It's like, we're criticising you. But I think it is very difficult for the Conservatives. How long has she got left? It's very difficult for the Conservatives, and she's still trying to find something to cling on to that she can claim is her policy, is their reason for being there. But at the moment, it looks like Labour are more worried about reform. Obviously, those local elections, which Reform did so well in, the Tories did so badly in. So I think a lot of these announcements and a lot of the sort of jargon and the policy speak we see around Labour are to try and win over Reform voters. I don't think that's a great tactic, to be honest. I think they should be looking at Lib Dem voters who are much more Labour-ish, and they can take a lot. But from Rachel Reeves' speech, it did just look like she was ticking off a whole list of things that she needs to say, go around the country, talk about the North East, talk about these various towns, what we're going to do, how we're going to get... Anything but London, how we're going to get migrants. And exactly, the Mayor of London came out and said that this was not good settlement for London. There was very little spoken about London. Interesting. So I think she had a tough task. I think she's sort of just about managed it, but if anything happens to the economy, or if there's any things in the next 3-4 years where we need more money, we don't have any surplus money for it. She's really left herself very tight there. Got to focus on growth, haven't we? Thank you, Simon. Thank you. Now to Nigeria's energy sector, which remains one of the most closely watched parts of President Bola Tinubu's economic agenda. 2 years into his administration, Tinubu's government has introduced a series of bold reforms designed to revitalise oil production, cut operational costs and attract investment back into the country's most vital industry. I recently sat down with Wale Tinubu, Group CEO of Owando PLC, to unpack how private operators are adapting to this new environment. What tangible impact has the removal of the subsidy and, of course, sorting out the foreign exchange had on private sector operators?
Without a shadow of doubt, it's changed things. First and foremost, when you look at the amount of waste that had occurred over successive decades, I mean, Nigeria has potentially spent over $150 billion on petrol subsidies. Now, that's more than enough money to ensure that you had 24-hour electricity in this country, more than enough capital to ensure you had full-scale refining, more than enough capital to solve perpetual infrastructural deficits which this country has had. So the issue is the saving is critical. And you can see the direct impact in the amount of revenues which the state, local, and the federal government now have. They have 3 times the revenue available to them than they did prior to the subsidies. And that means more cash, more availability for public sector infrastructure. Now, there's a limit to what the private sector can do. So when you have to deal with issues like roads, for example, which are common services, you need the public sector, and so government needs to have capital to do it. Our tax to GDP ratio must go up, or our revenue to GDP ratio must go up, and it is going up. So I think the next step was that. And in terms of the private sector, having a unified exchange rate as well as a removal of subsidy has allowed the private sector to focus on energy conservation. And you would have noticed, first things first, we've seen a 40 to 50% reduction in the consumption of petrol in the country. The roads are freer, and why is that? Because we had a situation where we had a lot of movement that probably, to a certain extent, probably wasn't necessary. There's now going to be more investment in telecoms, more investment in communication, other means of communication. There's also going to be more investment in mass transit, which is what it should be, rather than individual transit, which is expensive. Okay. Finally, for example, take things as basic as even generators. Generators were run on petrol. Now, petrol, PMS means premium motor spirits. Now, to use the most expensive fuel to generate power is an anomaly, and it's only existed because we had mispriced products within our system. I think that we now have the fundamentals that is necessary to create a modern day economy. And without having a modern day economy or having fundamentals, then it's going to be very tough for the country to industrialize.
And as part of the same energy story, we revisit my earlier interview with Professor Anthony Adebulegbe, chairman of Green Energy International. His company recently commissioned Nigeria's first indigenous onshore crude export terminal in over 5 decades, a $400 million project in River State that many see as a blueprint for local content success. Talk to me about the Otaki port terminal and why it's been described as such a game changer for Nigeria.
Yeah, it is a game changer because we have a lot of stranded assets. What we mean by stranded assets is that assets that have oil reserves, there are even wells there, but they cannot produce because there is no export path. There's no export infrastructure where they could take the oil to, and that's what we call a terminal. And because of the reason being that they are aging infrastructure and also the vandalization of those infrastructure. So those fields, oil wells were there, they could be there for decades. Oil there, wells that have been drilled, and yet you can't do any exploitation. But now we've done a terminal, and those who are close to us, about 50 kilometers around us, can take advantage of this new terminal. And so that's a game changer. There's going to be more than 50 or 60 oil wells that could now have an opportunity to export their production.
How do you balance, oil expansion with the just energy transition? Regular viewers will know just last week I was in the House of Lords where the UK government are really trying their best to assist in the energy transition in Africa. Does that matter to you, or is it the bloodline of the economy and it will remain that way?
Yeah, it matters. You said it all. First, let's talk about the facts. There's going to be transition. Yes. I mean, it's been transition over the centuries. We've started with coal going to oil will go to gas. There's going to be transition. But there's also opportunity for economic development. Nigeria depends to a large extent on revenue from oil export, to the extent that we could do 2.5 million barrels of oil a day, but we're only doing less than around 1.5. That's lost opportunity. The oil you cannot export today and get foreign exchange so that you can use it to invest in your economy is lost forever. So whether there's going to be a transition or not, it's also very important that we keep an eye on the development agenda of the country and still have our oil production going. In any case, what we are transiting to, renewables and gas, you still get that from having your field producing. So that's what. So it's not contradictory. It's just a matter of optimizing what you have now for what you need in the future.
Both interviews can be watched in full on Channels Television's YouTube page shortly after the show. Coming up on the Channels Business Global, it's all systems go for Wimbis' 3rd London conference. I'll be speaking with Executive Director Omowumi Akingbongbe about what to expect from this year's power-packed showcase for African women in leadership. Then later, I'll be bringing you exclusive coverage from Lancaster House, where diplomats gathered to formally welcome Honourable Shirley Ayorkor-Botchwey as the new Secretary General of the Commonwealth. All of this after the break. Do stay with us. Welcome back to Channels Business Global with me, Juliana Olayinka, reporting from just outside the Palace of Westminster in central London. Last week, Lancaster House played host to a high-level diplomatic gathering, marking the formal welcome of Honourable Shirley Ayorkor-Botchwey as the new Secretary General of the Commonwealth. Botchwey, a former Foreign Minister of Ghana, is the first West African and second woman to lead the 56-member organisation. In her keynote speech, she laid out an ambitious vision focused on climate finance for small island states, expanded intra-Commonwealth trade, and reform of the global financial architecture.
Dignitaries, Nananom, chiefs, friends of the Commonwealth, we gather to mark a moment of historic significance. The official welcome reception for the 7th Secretary General.
Let's make this a Commonwealth that delivers. 56 countries, 2.7 billion people, 1.6 billion of whom are under the age of 30. They are the game changers across the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, join me in warmly welcoming the Honourable Shirley Buche, the Secretary General of the Commonwealth. The number 7 is no ordinary number. Across cultures, faith, and philosophies, it represents completeness, divine purpose, and perfection.
I am so proud that, like me, she is of Ghanaian heritage, and just witnessing the strength of feeling around the room, I believe that there is a renewed hope in what the Commonwealth can deliver.
It's fantastic, man, to have now a leader from Ghana representing not only her country, but all of the countries within the Commonwealth here in the UK is incredibly important, and for it to be a woman as well makes it even more powerful.
As a young female Ghanaian myself, seeing her take up this role just inspires me so much to also continue to push hard and work hard as well. So congratulations to her.
On behalf of the United Kingdom, I offer you my warmest congratulations and our pledge of our wholehearted and full-bodied support.
Commonwealth is a living promise of unity, of cooperation, of progress, and sustainability. The Commonwealth is proof that we can overcome our past, that we can take the good while calling out the bad, that we can find unity in purpose, not identity, that we don't have to look east or west, south or north, just forward. And that is the journey we will take with humility, with unity, and with purpose. Let us rise to this moment. To all who live within our union, let us join together to make this truly a Commonwealth that delivers. Thank you.
And now to my final topic. This Saturday, Wimbis returns to London for its 3rd international conference, taking place at the Hilton Kensington under the theme, The Power of Us Uniting for Impact. Earlier, I called up with Omowumi Akingbongbe, Executive Director of Wimbis, to find out what's on the agenda. Omowumi.
Hi, Julia.
Caroline.
We're here again.
We are here again. It's so good to see you. I've got to say, this week, and I'm not joking, at least 5 of my contacts have said, are you going to Wimbis this weekend? Are you going to Wimbis this weekend? Honestly, the expectation, the anticipation is palpable. Talk to me about what's going to be happening on Saturday. I know you're as excited as my contacts.
Oh, yes, we are very, very excited. You know, the theme for the conference this year says it all. The power of us, united for impact. And it's coming at a time where Wimbis has formally also registered here in the UK.
Congratulations, major.
And the whole idea is to drive home the point of what happens when women come together. We make power available, we make magic available, and at the same time, we get to root for each other. Supporting each other, you don't feel alone, especially for the women in diaspora. So that's the main focus for Wimbis, women in diaspora, women of color, and how they can get to thrive here, even in the United Kingdom.
Caroline, I was saying that everybody in my network is talking about Wimbis. There's so much anticipation. I was fortunate enough to be there last year, and I can agree, the atmosphere in the room is palpable. 3rd edition in London. Talk to me about that cross-collaboration, because we know, even though we're similar, there are some differences. Context, nuance, punctuality. Nigerian British women and Nigerian women in Nigeria businesses, we're quite different but quite similar.
Yeah, and that's the most important part about Wimbis as well. That's why we're set apart and we're different, because we've through our meetings and through our conversations, we understand the difference in culture. So with that in mind, we're thinking, okay, we're not thinking like Nigerians, we're thinking as diasporans or UK black women in the UK. How do we do things? We're never late, we're always on time, we're punctual. The conversations that relates to us is what we're having. So even though, yes, we have Wimbis in Nigeria and it's been great, it's awesome, it's incredible what it's achieved, it's different in the UK because we're listening to the women in the UK and what they want and what they want us to deliver. And that's the difference. So we're talking about collaboration, we're talking about impact, we're talking about power, we're talking about unity. So I'm so excited, and like I was last year, I'm so excited. Even this year, I'm like, oh my goodness.
I can feel the excitement. But it's nice, isn't it? We need that. And yes, there are differences, but there are so many similarities. You know, being parents.
Yes.
You know, dealing with difficult relationships, some good, some not so good. Talk to me about some of those talking points that you're expecting to happen this weekend.
You know, just like how you said, different and at the same time similar.
Yeah.
If you look at the things that actually limit women, the challenges, the barriers and everything, to a large extent, it's similar across the countries. And that's why it's resonating not just in Nigeria, even here in the UK. Currently, the Wimbis membership base, now I'm talking about associates and life members of Wimbis, we span over 20 countries.
Wow.
Yes. And it just shows, and they're not all Nigerians. We have people of different nationals coming into that community because the things that we address, the things that we talk about, resonates not just within the borders of Nigeria, but across the globe. And being able to know that what I'm dealing with here is what that human...
It's not unique.
Exactly.
Yes.
And the solutions, if we pursue it, they do come to reality and making things easier. And that is what Wimbis is all about. Inspire and empower women to attain leadership positions. And we see that happening.
Absolutely. I've got to say, Caroline, believe it or not, can be quite intimidating, you know. I've seen the lineup of ladies. Again, I was there last year. Very accomplished women, you guys are. And what more can we expect? And again, it's tomorrow. It's Friday today, so the event is tomorrow. How can people attend? And for those women who do feel that, no, these women are too scary, they don't smile, I don't belong, how can you alleviate some of that anxiety?
Honestly, I couldn't even imagine how humble we could be, even if we tried. Because the main thing, if you think about the fact that we want to encourage one another, we need each other, we need to hold each other up. So for us to do that, we need to be humble, we need to be relatable. And all of these women, yes, before I joined Wimbis, I probably thought the same thing as women. Oh my God, I don't want to be dealing with those women. But no, it's nothing like that at all. You need to be in it to feel it.
Yes,
and
exactly.
if you want to get anywhere in life, if you want to, because we've talked about the fact that the issues we're facing are the same across board, across globally. So if you want to belong, if you want to be somewhere that you can see the difference, you can feel the impact, you can feel globally a change in your life and in everything that concerns you, you need to be there. Honestly, it's just incredible. The changes I've had in my life and the confidence I've had in just the little time I've been within Wimbis and with the women, without the fear of like, oh my God, I don't belong.
Putting your foot wrong.
Exactly.
Or,
and it's okay.
It is okay. It is.
You
I
know?
think it is. We're running out of time. Omowumi, if somebody wants to come tomorrow, how can they come? If they can't come tomorrow and they're watching from Nigeria, how can they get involved in Wimbis? Do you have to be as spectacular as you and have an MBA at Oxford or Harvard or something?
Just come as you are. And you can sign up to register, and you can also turn up at the venue on Saturday. It's happening at Hilton, Kensington. So we'll still onboard you when you come there. And I mean, there's so much more that we can be, and it just starts with the mind. And that's what Wimbis does for you. It transforms your mind. It lets you see you in the near future. So whatever you're doing on Saturday, please
make sure you are there. I hope there'll be food.
Oh yes. Boy.
That's paramount.
No food.
And we're having a party after.
A
disco fever.
Okay, we don't want to get the viewers too jealous, but the good thing is you are in London and it's happening this weekend. So next week we can report on what happened.
Yes,
Thank you so much, Caroline and Omowumi.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Well, sadly, that's all we have time for today, but as always, do get in touch with your comments and suggestions. I'll see you at the same time next week for more in-depth business discussions on Channels Business Global. Goodbye.